The game is much more puzzle-based than Legend, and also much more exploratory. It's much less linear. So here we are, and here's our first puzzle. So let's have a quick pan around. Don't get a look at my environment. That's another way out. What do we find over here? Very much. On the floor. Aha, something shiny. Let's first have a look at this. If we look carefully, we can notice that there's a little hole there, with something stuck in over here, deliberately stuck out. So we can be relatively sure that we have to return, given the symmetry of this object, one of the little wheelie things there and there. And sure enough, one is on the floor here, so we can immediately test our hypothesis. Good sticky. And there we are. And sure enough, it goes in. So we now know that we're looking for one more of these. The other thing to note is that there are a few new features in this game. In fact, I'll probably fit in quite a lot of this stuff immediately. The first is the PDA. The PDA has changed somewhat. You now have a sonar map. As far as I can tell, this is totally useless. I've never used it for anything. It gives you just a basic geometry map if you're getting confused by colours, I guess. You have area information, which tells you how many relics and treasures you've got. Cool, I guess. Now, weapon selection. This is an interesting one. I didn't realise until quite far through the game, you can actually pick all of these weapons at any point. Literally, at any point during the game, I can say, I want an assault rifle. And presumably, in her tiny little backpack, she's carrying an entire arsenal. This is bizarre, and I'll explain why in a moment, especially because it asks you which weapon you want to pick at the beginning of every level after this. So I'd always assumed you picked your weapon, you stuck with it. Your inventory shows you what you've got, the health packs, gear, all as standard before, weapons, sticky grenades are quite cool, and treasures. And these are basically, that's a relic on the right, so we know what it looks like, and here are the treasures. Treasures all look identical in this game, which I think is huge here. That's not a huge shame, it's just a minor shame. It's a minor, I mean, in this level there are 26 treasures, every single one of them looks like that. Treasure saturation, there's not even a delineation, a demarcation between the bronze and silver that existed before. It's now just treasures and relics. And treasures do nothing other than give you access to extra content in the form of screenshots and so forth, whereas the relics give you access to extra health. Here's a journal. So this is if you want to read up on what's going on. That's if you've already been around, so you can go back and explore. That's all well and good. Field assistance is basically Lara giving you hints on what to do. This is because this game is a little more confusing than Legend, maybe. And so they gave you health. I like Keeley Horse is great, so let's see what she says.
Those large ornate discs look like they can be moved. I should try pulling on the handle I put into that disc.
So indeed, let's try and pulling on this handle. Actually, no, I'll do it a bit later. I mean, for now, I'll do it. I'll solve this puzzle towards the end. But first, I'm going to go out of this way, and I'm going to explore a little bit just to show you this environment. The other thing about this is the treasures are all marked up with these little hand symbols. That hand means you can pick something up, which can make them both obvious and less obvious, because it means that in general the treasures are simply scattered all over the place. Most treasures are not hidden by puzzles. Most relics aren't hidden by puzzles. In fact, they're simply observation. There's a shark around here. And I think that's a bit of a shame. Here's our new boob light, by the way. It doesn't have a limited charge anymore. And if we look around, we notice that there are all these little hidden areas scattered around the main disc. Sure enough, there are treasures inside. Or a jellyfish. I've never actually bumped into a jellyfish, but I assume if you bump into one, you get a small shock. Now let's test this. Neurotoxins, please. Ouch. Indeed. That little thing's just to give you a shock. Fantastic. There we go. Now this time, if you look back at the central spire, we've just emerged from the side, so that's where the front is, and that's where I emerged. So let's have a little explore around the back side. You can't sprint swim forever, by the way. She gets tired and then she reverts to breaststroke. Okay, that'll be literally true. So as long as we notice all this fallen masonry, there are a few more deliberately sunk in areas. If you try and swim out, I think it currently pushes you back as a shark. You can see the background of that. In general, the environments in this game are truly beautifully designed, and what I mean by that is there are many, many ways to go through each environment, and in general not a set path. Well, there are obviously more efficient paths, but they're not prescribed. You can be efficient or you can be inefficient. I think it's my view on the steady state paths. Calm down. Hello, are you okay, computer? Maybe. Ah, here we are. pause it. Actually, I'll just let it calm down. Fantastic, here we are. A similar thing happened when I was doing Legend as well. I'm not really sure what causes that, but it goes well after a while. Here's another one, this time cunningly hidden by seaweeds. I wonder what we'll find in here. Notice that everywhere is lit by this kind of radiant glow. In this they've got a special kind of lighting that basically means each surface that you stand near radiates light of the colour that would be radiated from that surface. And what that means is that if you're, for example, standing near a bunch of plants, Lara's skin will have a distinct greenish hue. And this is realistic and it looks fantastic. In some areas it looks really, really good, the effective lighting, both on her skin and in general on the environment. Now that looks rather like one of the little daisies on which the one was placed, so we know we're in probably the next one of these things is going to be one of these little underwater wizards. That's about this way. Grottos, we'll call them grottos. All sharks slain apart from one. You can hear. Love that shimmering effect of the water. Fantastic. I don't think it'll be that light down here. You'll notice that later on they make a very great reliance of diffuse lighting that seems to come from nowhere in this game, which is necessary because in many places you're in areas which would have no light, but at the same time well, I don't know, if you actually look at the environment, which this game in many ways rewards you for doing, it looks a little odd. Got our treasure there. Right, now I'll go and solve the central puzzle. And just to give you a good flavour of the Underworld, that's roughly what this has to offer. A few of these little grottos, and one of these contains the piece you need for the puzzle. So let's whiz forth back to our central puzzle. Schools of fish hanging around. Let's go. You'll also notice that the music is much less melodic, and what I mean by that is that, in general, it's mostly ambient noise, with very little in the way of themes. There are a few exceptions to this. It's more effective, and what I mean by more effective is in many cases you won't notice it, but you'll feel the mood that it's trying to convey. But at the same time, it is perhaps not quite what one wants. Well, I don't know. I really quite like the soundtrack to Tomb Raider Legend in its own terms. We twist it and it spins clockwise. I see. What we'll also notice is that there are 4 lines, 3 circles. What that probably means is that we need to put all of the circles onto one of these discs. Give it a good twist. And we'll give this one 2 twists. Presumably our job is done. Go. Ta-da! Fantastic. And here we go. This is another interesting area. If you look carefully, you'll notice that there are treasures in this area that are often placed in places where you'd only see if you were going backwards through it.